There we go. We're all recording now.
Yeah. Yeah, welcome, Ricky. It's such a, you know, it's an honor to have you on here. It comes with an awful lot of responsibility because Alpa and I have been on this journey along with Tiana and Aisha to wake up the Indian, the Pakistan, the Bangladeshi communities, because one thing that I've learned in my life is ignorance is no defense. So it falls at our doorstep. And you and I both know how the Hollywood impact has impacted India with the Bollywood adoration of their stars. And
Correct.
when they find out that they're not what they thought they were, it's going to be heartbreak for so many, because they idolize these people. And I think we've all been guilty of idolizing the wrong people. But it because I've spent time in India, in Lucknow, and I have a lot of Indian friends that are real characters. You get to know the way they think, the way they act, but they still, even though they still love Charlie, they still rather hear it from an Indian, because I'm not an Indian.
Yeah.
And it's just, it's in their DNA, and I get it. It's the same with me. I'd rather hear from somebody of my own culture than I hear from a foreigner telling me what to do. And this is where you become so massively important with Alpa and Tiana and Aisha, etc., to come from the mouth of their own.
Yeah, I mean, look,
and it does it. You got over 2 billion people in that part of the world. That's a lot of people.
Just want to jump to what you said there before I just introduced Ricky, is that you'd think that, and that would be the hope. But the thing is that within the Asian community, I think very well-meaning folks, there's a fear-based mentality. And when Ricky messaged me on Facebook, and we've connected ever since, he's an amazing soul, very talented wedding photographer, and you know, does some superb work. But he's been awake for many years, and we've shared some great stories together and insights into how this is for us, you know, and it has been comforting. And Charlie, when I spoke to you in July, I would have thought I would have had a lot more people. So it was an absolute delight when Ricky contacted me and said, Alpa, you know, you're brave doing what you're doing, but also I've been awake for 10 years. And I was just like, Ricky, I salute people like you, because I make I don't hide the fact that this journey where the level of corruption that's happening globally, I didn't know about this. I was asleep. Spiritually, I've had my own journey, but what's been going on with the children and all of that, it's only been a year in now, and I've just wanted to scream about it. So I don't claim to know everything. You know, I'm not an authority in this truth community, but I wanted to scream out loud. So when Ricky contacted me, I mean, being awake for over 10 years, Ricky, it's just like, I don't know how you managed. I can barely cope in a year, you know? So thank you for coming on board.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me. I mean, this journey kind of started when I was, I think, just finishing high school. I'm 34 now. So I was about 16. I was just doing my last year of, like, you know, GCSEs. And there was a lot of things that were happening in my life, personal things, spiritual things with my family, which I'm not going to go too much into because I don't know who's watching this. And then when I hit college, I remember YouTube was getting really big at the time, but it was mainly a platform to watch music videos. And all of a sudden, YouTube, you started having lecturers come on. You know, like Jordan Maxwell. I don't know if you guys have heard of him. He's like the godfather of conspiracy. I was watching his lectures, and I was like, and then all these conspiracy videos started popping out of nowhere. You know, Zeitgeist and all these really, really cool videos back in the day. And when I first watched it, I wasn't shocked. I wasn't scared. I was like, something feels right to me here. This makes sense to me. Most people that watched it my age at the time, they're like, have you seen this video? It's so crazy. What are they thinking of? This conspiracy theory, all that, you know? But I watched and I was like, I really resonated with what they were saying. And so I learned to just basically keep this to myself, watch, learn, study. I got books because back then there wasn't as many videos as there are now. Now the information is out there easily. before it was mainly books. That's the main source of information. And then you'd have a few lecturers come on to YouTube and post their videos. So I learned and I studied in secret, obviously. And I knew about all these things when I was like 17, 18 years old. I knew about the Illuminati, secret societies, where money comes from, you know, the Charles Rockefeller. I knew this all when I was only 16, 17 years old.
Wow.
And then I think when I got towards like university, then obviously I started to study, because I'm based on my background is filmmaking. I kind of got sucked into that world I did of like media. So I lost a little bit of track of what I was studying in terms of like, you know, the truth of the world. And then I started getting back into it again when I was watching like the Oscars, for example. I was watching these actors and I was like, I mean, look at Ricky Gervais now. He's so brave to come out and say these things. But I was noticing this at 21, 22 years old. I'm watching the show and thinking, this is so cringe. This is so fake. This is so off right now. Look at the actors. Look how fake they are. It just doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
And then as I started studying more, I learned about Hollywood and like the corruption, what's really happening there. I didn't know so much about the child paedophilia. I mean, generally you knew about it, but you didn't know how far it went. Yeah, I don't think many people knew, actually, to be honest with you. And then I watched, I don't know if you heard of a guy called Alex Collier. Yeah. I watched one of his lectures back in the 90s, and he was speaking about it then, because the Andromedans, they told him.
Yeah. And
I watched this and it was a shock. Even the audience were like, whoa. And I think I was 26, 25 when I first heard about that. So yeah, that was quite shocking. And obviously throughout the years of my life, I've learned a lot, met lots of people. You know, as you get older, you get wiser, right? As they say. And then I think during the time when Trump was started to first, you know, kind of get into the media, like about like, he's, you know, campaigning for presidency. Then you had the Q drops come in. I think that's when I really got back into it again, because everything that was happening, everything Q was saying was like, wait a minute, I've studied this like 5 years ago. This makes sense. This is why is it coming out now for? Where's this all coming from? So then I really got deeper into it, and everything, literally everything that I studied and knew, it was like, it's all coming true. I was like, yeah, this is real. This is no joke here. So that's kind of been my journey, and in the last, I would say, 3 years, I've been very much heavily into it. I've actually helped others. I speak a lot more openly about it now. Before I wouldn't, because I used to get demonized a lot for being a conspiracy theorist. Now I'm just like, no, I'm coming out there. I'm going to say it. I don't care. I'm not scared. I don't live in fear. And I think the worst has been probably the last year since the whole pandemic started. My life actually has gotten better in the last year than it has ever, whereas other people's lives are going down. And the reason why is because I don't live in fear. This does not exist. This whole coronavirus does not exist in my timeline. I'm not going to let it affect my life. So my life has improved on many different levels. It's because I don't give it consent. It's not real to me. I still have not to this day worn a mask once.
Yeah.
I've probably been questioned maybe 3 times in the last year. And every time I get questioned, I give them facts. They don't know what to say to me. They're like, oh, you just carry on. Sometimes I don't even get questioned at all. They'll ask every single person in the queue. When they get to me, they'll look at my face and they wouldn't even give me, because mine doesn't matter, right?
Yeah.
The whole time I'm in the queue, I'm saying in my mind, you're not going to ask me to wear a mask. You're not going to ask me. It doesn't exist to me. Go away, go away, go away. Manifestation. They come to me.
Just have that energy.
Yeah. Timelines, we can all interconnect. We can all live in different timelines, but in the same world. You know, dimensions in the same world, state of mind. So, sorry, I'm going on a little bit, but that's been my brief journey. Yep.
I'm very proud of you, Ricky. I'll tell you that right now, for the way that you've gone through this journey. And I'll say this to every other Indian and Pakistani and Bangladeshi and Sri Lankan and every single person in the world. There must be many young men and young women who've been the same as Ricky and kept it to themselves.
Yeah.
But now my thought for today is ignorance is no defense.
Yeah.
And it falls on our shoulders. If I stand up in a court of law and say, I didn't know the speed limit was 40, I was doing 70, ignorance is no defense. That's just a little lesson in life to everybody. Yeah. So if you get vaccinated, ignorance is no defense. Yeah. I saw yesterday the president of Pfizer confirming that the vaccination is not verified,
Yes.
is not approved, and he wouldn't take it. I've also know for a fact that Bill Gates, none of his family would ever take a vaccine.
Absolutely.
And yet they're pushing it on people. And for people of India, when they tested it out, 35,000 children were killed in the testing. And it was illegal to sue the company who were testing it. That's because right. Barack Obama made it illegal. And I now know that the Indians are looking at actually suing the American government for making it illegal because of the fact, you know, they've just turned a blind eye to 35,000 Indian children. Now, I want to put this in perspective because I love India and I love the people from India. And the one reason that they like me is I had an arranged marriage at 17, 18. So they understand me. They know what I've been through. Yeah. It's part of their culture. And they go, well, what are you doing having an arranged marriage? You're not Indian. I'm going, well, it happens in other societies as well.
Yeah.
It's so important that we get the truth out to people and that we get it out in a manner of humility, especially for the Indian people and the Bangladeshis, the Sri Lankans, the Pakistanis. The humility is such an important part of their culture that we reach out to them without making them look stupid, because then they'll just shut down. And that's the same with all of us. We need to learn compassion, because I want to slap most people, especially the English, around the face and go, are you stupid?
Yeah.
But that's not really constructive. That's not going to help. It will put them into a coma rather than wake them up.
Yeah, Charlie, I'd like to add to that, you know, about the humility thing. I had an incident this week which really got me thinking. It was very thought-provoking, and it was a response from a good friend and a well-meaning friend, and completely disagrees about the whole Trump. He hates him and all that stuff, you know, that we've just got all over that. But he said to me, Alpa, you look, you know, it's shocking that you're doing what you're doing, because, you know, maybe like you're British, especially being an Asian and a British Asian, you should be focusing your energies here on the UK. Forget America. Why have you become so Americanized, and this Trump following of yours? And, you know, maybe look into all the honor killings in Pakistan and in India. What I feel, though, they just don't grasp what's happening and how everything's interconnected. So going back to the vaccines, it's just fear, and it's just the reliance on mainstream media, and that's how they're sort of indoctrinated. And then there's just huge cognitive dissonance. And I see that, like my uncle called me, said, I've had the vaccine and I'm fine. And I said, okay, you know, I'm not forcing anybody. I just made sure that my parents haven't had it. But it's trying to gauge the mentality. And what I realized a long time ago is that we can plant the seeds. It's not up to us to wake them up as such. We can plant the seeds, but we've got free will, and what they do with it. Now, then another friend of mine contacted me this week and said, look, Alp, I don't see eye to eye with you on the whole Trump narrative, and we can agree to disagree, but on the whole scandemic, we, you know, are on the same page. And I told one of my friends not to have it. 30 years old, had the vaccine, died. This is somebody I know personally. So what's going on with the whole story with vaccines is just a bit of a gray area for so many people, because it's like, well, I've had it, nothing's happened to me. And then you hear stories. So there's the ones that have had it, and there's the placebo effect. Was it just saline that they got? You know, is there 30% vaccines that are out there that are bad? We don't know. We don't know the accuracy of what's going on. So, but the way I think in terms of with my left brain and the logic, how long has the testing been done? It's not even been a year, and we are advocating vaccines to protect us from a virus when we still have to stay indoors. Like, why are this camaraderie that's going on? That in itself is so obvious. And, you know, people are not connecting. Why? It's because of the fear. And that's been induced in society and programmed for so long. Unhooking that overnight is not going to be an easy task. It's not, and it's getting worse. So Charlie, yes, you're very right. There is going to be that humility that needs to be employed, because you've got to show people this is what Trump's doing, exposing all the corruption at the moment that's going on. Look at what's going on in America. Yeah, you know, exposing all the pedophilia, and it's being kind of breadcrumbed into society. we would have hoped that it would have just been announced straight away, considering the NSA have it all. But there's a method to this madness, and where we feel victimized and employing the blame culture, it's not getting anyone anywhere. We have to see that we're growing all the time throughout this timeline. But there's a method to this madness to expose everything so that people themselves decide and feel that they themselves have realized that actually, hang on a minute, this stuff is a load of nonsense. But we're still in that process. So, you know, people are in those two camps, you know.
No, I totally agree. And this is where we have to work together as a team. It's not just Charlie, it's Ricky, it's Alpa, it's all of us. Work together to try and some people will connect with Ricky, some people will connect with Charlie, some people will connect with Alpa, some with Aisha, some with Tiana. Each person will, and you know, as I said, I'm not the Messiah, I am just Charlie. And we have to find who we connect with. Sometimes it's easy to take criticism from certain people and not from others. We don't like it from within generally. We don't like criticism. We certainly don't like it from a completely different culture, because that's sort of, you know, that it's inbred into us that you're being talked down to. Now we're just trying to provide guidance and clarity. It's like with children. I learn it with Justin. Justin can communicate far better with other children than I can with the children. They have their own language.
Yeah.
So we have it in front of our eyes as to what we can do. I'm going to share a very interesting experience that happened to me that had no value at the time, but it has a lot of value right now. I had somebody come along to me, it must be 10 or 12 years ago. And they asked me if I was interested in buying an two abortion clinics in the UK, one in Manchester and one in London. Because the person who offered it to me, his father, who ran them, had died. And they'd been left them in the estate. And they were, when I looked at the financials of it, it was a cash cow. It made a fortune. And when I looked at the numbers from a business perspective, I thought, wow, that's a real big money-making machine. Because people go in for an appointment that's 30 minutes long, and then they come back a few days later for a cleanup. And there's so many people, nurses around that are available to work that are on virtually a minimum wage. And it was, I mean, the outgoings compared to the income, and they were dealing both Manchester and Manchester, Birmingham and London, were all seeing between 300 and 500 clients a week. And I'm like, really? Really? So anyway, as you do in business, the first thing I did was some market research. And I went round to find out who the big competitors were. Who do you think was the biggest competitor in the UK in abortion clinics? And you can't actually, I had to do some deep digging to find out who owned the company. Who do you think it was? Richard Branson.
No.
Virgin.
No, it doesn't surprise me now, but back then.
But now it didn't surprise me at all then. But now you think about the islands and you think about everything else and you just go, wow, had no impact 12 years ago. Whether he still owns them or not, I don't know. I haven't done the research recently, but I found out I thought about it yesterday, and I thought, because somebody asked me about it, and I went, oh my word. I'd forgotten. I'd looked at all the statistics, all the numbers, all the figures, and he had a whole stack of them around the UK back in the day. And that just shows you the journey. And the interesting part was that his name was hidden way behind. And it was only when I investigated and spoke to the company involved, and I can't even remember the name of his company, but I did some research, and one of the people that worked for the company, an accountant, told me that Branson was behind it. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. Very interesting that he hadn't called it Virgin Abortions, wasn't it? Probably would never have worked.
Well, that's just it, Charlie. When you follow the money and do the research, it will always go back to that very few set of billionaires that literally have their hands and pockets in everything, you know. So it doesn't surprise me at all.
Yeah, well,
But he would have
India
known
as
the
well.
value of life, wouldn't he?
Yeah.
From these islands of what was going on around him. He would have known the value of the adrenochrome, etc., etc., etc. And we're starting to learn with these abortions. But this is why California, as an example, they've been pro-abortion because it's such a cash cow. They make so much money out of it behind the scenes.
Yeah,
and
they're injecting vaccines with aborted fetal stuff.
Correct.
It's absolutely horrific to even think about it, and this is why it's such a lucrative business. So it's all connected, Charlie. The end game is all connected, and like you just said, Ricky, follow the money. If you just employ that logic without going so deep, even into the levels that you've gone into, Charlie has, myself, people watching, like, you know, it's so deep. The rabbit hole is so deep, but the money and what's been happening with the children, following the money and what's been happening, the children should be screaming alarm bells. But it's difficult for people to hear this. My mum still can't listen to me. She can't hear me. She said, I'm not supporting you, Alpa, but this is too difficult. I can't hear it. And some of my friends have said the same. I have an awful lot of respect for all my friends who are mothers, and they just don't want to know. They said, they just go like this. We can't hear it.
Yeah.
So, you know, so I employ that compassion, that understanding, because it is tough. You know, if you're a parent and if you're so programmed, you're trying to get them to deprogram themselves from everything that they've known. So, you know, everything's unraveling very slowly, but it is going that way. Look what happened yesterday. I don't know if any of you saw it. Did I send it to you, Ricky? Brian Harvey, YouTube video. It went like viral. And he's gone, like he was going nuts. He was crying on that. He said, I'm going to get killed. Bit of an Isaac Cappy situation. This was just yesterday, exposing Daniela Westbrook, saying she was like properly a puppet, a handler. And that, you know, all the nefarious things that were going on at the BBC, what the BBC were doing to him. And he goes, just because I went to one party, they completely ruined my life because I went to one party. And he goes, everyone, everywhere was a bunch of pedophiles. I mean, my question is right now is, how is this information being allowed now? And why is it happening now? Is there any coincidences? Surely this is happening now because are they protected and they're able to now, right? Are there a lot of bad guys still out there? You know, are our lives in danger that we're speaking about this? But I really thought about that yesterday. He went nuts. He was going crazy. He was exposing the royal family really intricately. The parties that he was going to, but this one specific party with Ghislaine Maxwell, he goes, my life was over, and he exposes her. So, you know, people are coming out of the woodworks, and a lot of people in the media fraternity have been scared. I have people that I know that are really innocent and not huge Bollywood stars, but they are in the limelight, and they know of this, but do they talk about it openly? No. Why? Look what happened to Shashank, Ricky.
This is what I'm noticing now amongst the Asian community. They only wake up when it starts to affect them and their world.
Yes.
Okay, Charlie, you must understand that, right?
Yeah, totally.
And I think, so I've been saying for years to my own community, like, you know, don't trust the media. Don't trust the media. Don't trust it. They don't listen. They'll carry on watching BBC, ITA, you know. Then with the whole farmers' protest that's happening in India right now, and obviously my family, my lineage is farmers. Now we're studying the Asian community are like, oh, the Indian media, they're lying, propaganda. I'm like, well, I told you that years ago. Why is it when it affects you and your community that you take it seriously? We are one family around the world. Don't be so selfish. Don't be so ignorant. Okay. Anyway, whatever. They've woken up now. They understand the media, what they're doing. They're lying in India. Grit their teeth. However, when I tell them, all right, if they're lying to you in India about what's happening with the farmers' protests, they could be lying to you about anything. One lie can lead to many. So are you going to pick and choose? And they're like, what do you mean by that, Ricky? I'm like, well, if they're lying to you about the farmers' protests, they could be lying to you about coronavirus. Anything. Hollywood, paedophilia, you name it. No, Ricky, that's not true. You can't. But I'm like, well, are you going to pick and choose what they're going to lie and lie about? Lie and not lie about? It doesn't work like that. And they literally, like, it's just like, yeah, they're fighting this whole protest in India, and they're fighting the media, but back home here in England, they still want to watch CNN, they still want to watch Sky News and BBC News, and still believe that this is all real.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah.
I get, I understand, especially with the elderly community, because they're so set in their ways, Alpa. You know, when Indians first moved here from India, like to England, they had to adapt to this culture and lifestyle. And a lot of that was done through television, right? They'd watch TV shows like Fawlty Towers, Only Fools and Horses, you know, just British comedies and British culture, EastEnders. And that was their understanding of what Britain is. So
Yeah.
they're so reliant on the media and the news and TV that to tell them that it's all a lie, you know, you're shattering their world, their whole belief system is shattered. So it's very hard for them to wake up. However, the younger community, they've got a better chance. And it's weird because last year when I started talking about this more publicly, especially online, like social media, a lot of people would say to me, Ricky, you know what, you're making sense. This is real. Like, yeah, this is not right. You know, coronavirus is not real. And all of a sudden this year, I'll get these same people I'm calling. Yeah, I've taken the vaccine. I'm like, hold up, you just told me last year that you understood what I was saying to you. You believe, you know, this is all a hoax, and now you're taking a vaccine. Why? It's fear. It's all fear. And when I say to them, okay, tell me what's in the vaccine, give me an ingredient. They can't name one.
Not one.
Okay, then I tell them all the facts and figures. They're like, how do you know that? I go, this is public information. It's out there. You just got to do the work. Put the work in. And they're like, oh my God, I did not know that. I go, do you know what? If you die tomorrow of the vaccine, you can't see anyone. These companies are protected. The laws have protected them that you can't see them. So how is this really a cure?
What I don't understand, Ricky,
Yeah.
this is what I don't understand. It's public knowledge.
Yes.
That if you use your own immune system, you've got a 99.8% of survival.
Thank you.
If you take the vaccine, they claim it drops to 95%. So I think to myself, what is out there that makes you think that losing a 5% chance is a better idea? I don't get it. I don't understand why they think it's better.
It's psychological warfare. That's all it is.
Isn't it just?
Yeah.
Bioweapon that's been used against humanity,
Yeah.
and the Asian community are complying to a certain degree. The majority, there's so many people that are waking up, so many people that are scared to speak up, but still I had a friend yesterday say, Alpa, are you going to judge me that I had the vaccine done? I was like, I love this guy so much, and he's been following everything that I'm doing, and I was like, oh my God, not you, please.
Yeah.
And he goes, but I feel much better. Hopefully it's the saline or the vitamin D jabs that they are saying what they are. Who knows? But it does, like, after a while, I just said, as long as my parents don't have it, I can't control what other people are doing, including my friends. This is free will, but they don't want to make the effort to look into what actually is in there. And this is what it is. The media has spoon-fed society, humanity for so long that reliance, that interdependence on it as being the echelon of truth is far from it. So it's the programming, and unhooking them from it, again, I say time and time again, is not the easiest thing. So now we just, people have free will, and if they're going to do it, they're going to do it. In spite of you telling them, they'll still go ahead. It's that knee-jerk reaction of, I need to feel safe, because it's relying on something outside of themselves and their intuitive compass and their spiritual compass, where they can actually, you know, get in touch with their higher self and say, actually, no, I am not going to acquiesce. I'm not going to subordinate. I have the power over me. I am a sovereign being of light. Again, it's going back to that reliance on the way we worship as well. You know, like my mum, bless her, every single day she does her puja, and I love it. We have all this music going on. I've started questioning that in this last year, idol worship, you know, and doing all these things, because surely it's great. I love going to all the temples and I love everything, but you can do what's called mansik puja inside wherever you are. And, you know, it's unfortunate that temples are closed at the moment. I went to the Hare Krishna temple in Watford last weekend, and I was really upset because, you know, you're seeing all these arrows in the temple. You have to wear a mask inside. Luckily, I got away with it. I just said I'm exempt, but I got into trouble when I got outside. But it's become so militant in a weird way. You know, this conformist attitudes, this conformist ways of being, even in places of worship. What's happening? People are not questioning that. You know?
I saw it because I film weddings, so I saw it nearly every weekend. I'm like, it was sad. It was actually
married with masks.
No, I don't wear masks.
No, people are getting married with masks.
I've seen a few.
They're getting bridal like they're lengas.
It's actually really sad.
I know.
It's completely crazy. I had a phone conversation yesterday with somebody who's had the vaccination so they can travel back to Spain. The trouble is there's no flights. So it's pointless having the vaccination. And they've gone, well, they said, I feel fine, Charlie, but they tell me I need another one to back it up, a booster. I've gone, you know, this is how stupid it's got. The first one wasn't, because they'll probably give you saline. It's just programming.
Yeah.
Once you've been used to having a little prick in your bottom, you want another one. Yeah, that's going to work.
It's also emotional blackmail, because what they're doing is they're taking the things that you love and saying, right, you can't have that unless you have the vaccine. For example, holidays. You know, it's a rumor. It's not even in law yet that you have to have a vaccine to travel. It's not.
It isn't. That what was a directive that was put out that the mainstream media have chosen not to publish it, but the European Council have published that in Europe you cannot make it mandatory for a vaccination.
Yes. And
you cannot discriminate against those who don't have it.
Exactly.
That's come from the European Council, but the mainstream media have chosen to ignore that and said, no, we're not part of the European Union. We're England. You need it.
And I hear that all the time. Like, Ricky, do you know you can't travel? I'm like, no, you can travel. Of course you can. And I'm like, hold on a minute. So you're telling me it's more important for you to sit on a beach for 1 week, take a vaccine, come back, totally forget about the holiday and carry on with your life. That's more important than your own body and your own sovereignty. Forget it, mate. I'd rather sit at my home than go on a beach. No, thank you. My body and my life mean way more to me than a little crappy holiday.
Hey, with global warming, the beaches in England are getting better.
They're coming here, Exactly. And you know what? I spoke to someone else yesterday, and they was telling me that, oh, Ricky, what if I can't work? Well, what do you mean by that? They go, what if my work tells me, well, you can't work without a vaccine? I'm like, well, they can't do that to you. They can't force you. And in fact, you can sue them for human rights abuse, because that's discrimination against disability. I think it's the Human Rights Act 2002, I think it is.
Yeah, that's correct.
You know, and they didn't know this. I didn't know that. I go, well, there you go then. Go and tell your boss that tomorrow.
Yeah, they can't force you.
This is all public information.
It is.
There's so much there.
I've confronted the CDC and the WHO in the last month.
Wow.
Just for fun, really. And they've both pointed out that we told everybody back in March last year that it was nothing more than a common cold. And I went, so they're hiding behind the fact they published it in March already.
Yeah.
The minute you start saying to them, well, this is a load of rubbish, they go, well, we put it on our website back in March last year. We know that. And the mainstream media is pumping out the narrative, and the government's pumping out the narrative. It's incredibly dangerous. I mean, it's nothing more than a common cold. And you and I, Ricky, know that it's not as bad as man flu. Man flu is 10 times worse.
Oh, yeah, it is. I experienced that last year.
So, Ricky, you mentioned to me yesterday as well, and I don't really follow what's going on in Bollywood so much. But you said there's a lot of celebrities endorsing the vaccine right now, right?
I mean, I don't really follow Bollywood so much, but my friends do. The circles I'm in, because I work with a lot of like companies that work, and they were saying that they're endorsing the vaccine. They're endorsing even like with what's happening in India now, right now with the protests. You know, they're backing up the government. They're not backing up the protesters. And they're showing their true colors. These, I mean, they're all bought and paid for. I mean, probably half of them probably been threatened. You know, you're going to go on the news and you're going to say take the vaccine. If you don't, your family, everyone. You know, unfortunately, it's like that because Bollywood is actually it's a gang. It's a mob. It's a dark underworld. you know,
nepotism stuff that was going on in the film industry, and look at, in light of Sushant's death, it highlighted the nepotism that was going on in the film industry, that you can only get anywhere if you know somebody, or if you come from you know, one of the family, the Bollywood family backgrounds.
You know, I mean, it's quite horrible, but I've heard a lot of those stories about young actresses, and they have to sleep with the directors or the producers to get. I mean,
well, look what happened with Sridevi, Divya Bharati. You know, Sridevi's death paralleled Whitney Houston's death. Was it a sacrifice? So, and she died in the same way. So when we look at all the people that have been suicided in the film industries, be it Hollywood or Bollywood, there's just a signal there that's saying, like, basically, don't mess with us because you're going to die in the same way. So keep your mouth shut. Again, subordinate, acquiesce, shut your mouth, you know, suppress you. So this is what's going on, and this, we need to sort of look at that and see that something doesn't seem right. And by us like following these celebrities, the culprits as well to a certain degree. You know, we're being brainwashed by them. In 2017, it was just a really weird thing. I stopped following all celebrity for no reason. I didn't realize why I was doing that, but it just felt fake. It just felt fake. And I just felt that.
I stopped watching TV a long time ago.
Yeah, news for 10 years. But there were a few people that I really liked and admired, like the Priyanka Chopras and J-Lo and, you know, some of the female figures, ignorant completely to some of the things that they're involved with. Not sure about Priyanka, don't know anything about the Indian stars as such, and how deeply they are and which ones are complicit or which ones know what's going on. It's really difficult because I get so many people write into me and say, Alpa, you know, what do you think is going on in Bollywood? I don't really know, other than that there are nefarious things happening.
I can assure you that a lot have been threatened. I can assure you of that, because I have had a number of them come to me and ask me not to identify them.
Okay.
That's one thing that there's two areas that I've had people that have been threatened a lot. The Indian and Pakistan community have been threatened heavily, and the medical doctors have been told they'll be struck off and their families will be attacked if they go outside of the narrative, and that's hard and real. I mean, when you say to a doctor, number one, it's his calling. It's not a job, it's his calling. So when he gets told that if he goes outside the narrative, he's going to get struck off and his family will be attacked, this is evil. But I've said right from the start, for those people who followed me, this is not between Democrats and Republicans. It's not between conservative. It's not between Indian and Pakistan. For the first time in history, it's between good and evil.
Yes. Oh, Charlie, you know what? I say that all the time. I'm like, listen, the only way you're going to understand this, you need to understand one concept: good versus evil. You understand that, you understand exactly what's happening in the world. Simple as that.
It's that simple as that.
Yeah.
It's a spiritual war. You know,
and it's good to have the competitive side, like India and Pakistan, because I've been a resident in Dubai for a long time, so they play their cricket there an awful lot, and you can't get a taxi when they're playing, of course. But they're an amazing group of people who are fiercely competitive. And when they realise that they could actually come together, and it's good against evil, that's, you know, it's reprogramming your mind. To understand what we're going through, rather than just hating a group of people or fighting against a group of people. It was Democratic, it was Republican, it's Christian, Muslim, Protestant, Catholic, all different faiths against each other, Sunni and Shia. I mean, my big shock when I was in Dubai was when I was in a majlis for iftar, and I was sat there, and there was Christians, there was Jews, there was Muslims, and there was a Sunni and Shia sat side by side. First of all, I was looking at their dress, because they were clerics, beautifully dressed, but different headwear, different outfits, different colors. And I said to one of the sheikhs, I said, explain the difference between a Sunni and a Shia. And what's the headdress and what's the ranking, because it's all to do with the level that they are as clerics. And they were sitting there like best mates, getting on like a house on fire. And I was like, well, that's different from what I've been told in the media. I'd already absorbed the fact that Christians and Muslims got on like a house on fire anyway. That was just bollocks. I mean, excuse my language, rubbish. But when I saw a Sunni and a Shia just sat there together talking and laughing together, that was a massive penny drop for me, because I listened to all this hatred coming out of the media to divide the two. And I was
Divide,
like,
conquer.
wow. I'm sorry?
That's what it is, though. Divide, conquer, divide, conquer. If we're like,
Can I add to
we're
that?
powerful.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, there is something I would like to talk about actually, and it is to do with the farmers' protest in India. So my background, I'm Sikh. I don't know if you know, Charlie, much about Sikhs and who we are. So
I know a bit, but it'll be English knowledge rather than Indian knowledge.
Right, okay, all right. We're not going to go into details, but basically, Sikhs. I mean, our kind of tradition is a warrior tradition. We're warriors.
Okay.
Because at the time when we were formed, like there was a lot of conflict in India. Don't forget, there was no India, Pakistan. It was just one nation.
That's right.
You had invaders from like Afghanistan and so forth. And where the Punjab was, where I'm from, it was on the border. It was like the tipping point of India. So we were always at the forefront of any attacks. So naturally, we became defenders and warriors. So we really defended and looked after India.
Okay.
And we were all one. Like there was no like, oh, you had Pakistanis, we had like Muslims, Indians like Hindus and Sikhs. No, it was all, we all lived as one together peace. It was only when the British came, divide and conquer, right? That's when it all kind of messed up. Anyway, at these farmers' protests right now in Delhi, there are Sikhs, there are Hindus, and there are Muslims sitting together, praying together, eating together, all one. But what the Indian media have done is twisted the story and made it out as if like, oh, the Sikh terrorists have come down to cause problems in Delhi. Wrong.
Yeah.
You go then, you go and sit there yourself in that protest with the women, with the children, with the men, and there's different cultures, different castes, different religions. We're all sitting as one because it's not a religious protest, it's a farmers' protest. We're protecting our farmers, our agriculture. And this is what the media do. The media like to twist and turn and make it about Democrat versus Republican, as you said. It's not about that.
It's like the Black Lives Matter. It's exactly that. It's parallel to that.
They hijack a movement, they hijack a genuine movement, and they twist and turn it for their agendas, basically.
Distort the truth.
Yeah,
and thanks,
exactly.
you put me on the right path with that because I didn't quite understand what was going on there. So, you're seeing all these horrific videos about women getting trampled by tractors. I mean, that was awful, really, really awful to see that. And the way the farmers were being beaten. But again, the media, I wasn't sure the sources of these videos. I was just seeing them on social media, but we weren't really hearing about it here in the UK, were we? And there wasn't much noise on any of the media channels. So it's just in the Asian media, but they were distorting the truth. It's just for propaganda. And again,
we were the media. I was the one, along with many other people, posting constantly on social media, putting that pressure, tagging the BBC, tagging CNN on every post to make sure they hear our voice. And eventually, it obviously made the mainstream. Yeah. But even then, it made the mainstream, but they didn't sit on it. One post, one video, done. Next day, forget about it. And all it is because they want to say, oh, yeah, we did speak about it, Just Charlie, just like you said about the European Union, how they did mention that we did tell you, but they don't sit on it. They kind of do it to cover themselves a little bit, to say, hey, we did talk about it, Ricky, but they won't talk about it every single, like coronavirus. Every day it's in your face, boom, 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 boom.
Yeah.
That's what they want you to know, their narrative, not what's really happening in the world.
It's interesting, the farmer link, because if you take what's happening in America and the Constitution, it goes back to the farmers.
Yeah.
The people who cared for the land.
Exactly.
The people who looked after the land, tilled the land. This is where we're going back to.
Yes.
We're going back to the ground, to nature. And it's very interesting, the parallel between India and America, that going back to the land. And the farmers, I come from that background, and it's a.
Oh, really?
I come from Suffolk, where I grew up. From a farming perspective, my love on farming was chicken, and my father bought me 6-day-old chicken at 27 pence each when I was very young, 10 or 12 years old, and I went to another farmer and I found out I could buy them at 7 pence each. And I thought I was a good businessman. The trouble was, the ones I bought were cockerels. They didn't lay eggs. That's why they were cheap. My first lesson in business. but we landed up having thousands of chickens and supplying eggs for many, many people. But yeah, that I grew up in that mentality. And for a child, I've taken Justin up to one of our friends in Sheffield who have a big farm to watch him play on the land without electronic toys, without mobile phones, without just enjoying the environment of the farm. Was a real pleasure for me. And to go back to nature and just being out there, I just loved it. And I'm maybe I'm a naughty boy, I don't know, but I enjoyed, you know, wringing a chicken's neck, plucking it, drawing it, and eating it. It was fresh, came off the land. We grew them, and this was food. You know, we were growing our own food. Yes, there were chickens, but that was, some people go, oh, it's terrible, but that's how I grew up.
Yeah.
The only time I felt guilty is when we ate Henny and Penny, because we knew their names.
My worst nightmare, Charlie.
Yes, I know. Some people it will be.
Yeah.
But I grew up as a farmer, you know, on the farm, and you grow up. You know, we were virtually self-sufficient as a family growing up.
That's just it, right? You can be.
And they work so hard. And I find it sad that India are letting these corporations come in and taking over the whole farming industry. I mean, if there's anyone watching this show right now and wants just a quick breakdown of what's happening, it's basically the equivalent of saying to you, we're going to take away your minimum wage and we're going to let these corporations pay you. It's up to them what they pay you. They could pay you pennies. Doesn't mean it's not up to them. That's the problem that's happening right now in India. And these corporations, they can come in and they can pay you. They will get away with murder. They will.
Yeah, they will.
Yeah.
And if Trump hadn't come along, that would have happened. But what we're moving into right now, which I've been a part of for some time, and I've been working behind the scenes, for countries like India, will be such a blessing, because it will take people out of poverty, it will take people out of the slumdogs lifestyle and what have you. And I often look at India and remind people that India was the world leader in recycling long before the world woke up to recycling.
Absolutely.
And the English said, no, you're not recycling, you're a slumdog. No, these kids were out there recycling long before we'd even thought about it, and they were enjoying what they were doing. They were making a living.
Yeah.
And the English came along and stopped all that because, oh, you know, and then stopped their income. I'll tell you one thing, those slum dogs had an immune system that would put ours to shame.
Absolutely. 100%.
Yeah.
You know what I find the sad part about India is we're almost considered the home of spirituality.
Yes, you are.
We are.
You know, people in the West look to India for like inspiration, spirituality, discovering oneself. You know, we got it all there.
Yeah.
What happened? It just went so corrupted. It's horrible. It is when you think about it.
I have a number of spiritual contacts that I'm in contact with, and Alpa knows some of them. Didi Panasar. I mean, they're on a different level. They're connected on such a level that they get things so simply.
Yep.
And it's so clear. I mean, they're on a different level, but they're a pleasure to communicate with because they see things with clarity.
Yeah.
In a world full of bullshit and lies.
Absolutely.
Well, I tell you what, Ricky, it's been a real pleasure, and I'd love to do this again with Alpa, because that's been one of the most constructive times that we've been together, talking about, you know, matters in that part of the world that we need to connect with these people through compassion.
Yes.
And we'll definitely do it again. I take my hat off to you and hold you in with high regard for you for continuing your journey for so long. And it will have been a lonely one, as you've said. You had to keep a lot of it to yourself, and nobody would have believed you anyway. But now's your time to shine, Ricky. But thank you for shining with us.
Amazing, Ricky. Honestly, thank you. And thank you for coming into my life. You're just an absolute rock star, and just so wise, and so, you know, so much wisdom, a beautiful demeanor about you. Thank you, Charlie, as well.
Thank you, Alpa. Always a pleasure. Lots of love.
See you next week.
Yep, will do.